Sometimes in life, a door seems to close on dreams, expectations, joys. But sometimes a door opens into a new profound understanding of ourself, of life, of God, opens into a new vision of peace, opens into a new and profound sense of a love that affirms our identity. Jack Kornfield tells a story of such a moment. Kornfield is an author and a teacher of Buddhist mindfulness. Stories about a math teacher in Indiana. One year, this teacher had a class of particularly difficult students. One of those days when the class seemed particularly focused on not learning, the teacher herself disrupted the usual routine of class. She went to the board, and on the board, she wrote the names of the 31 students in the class. Then she asked everyone to copy the names onto a sheet of paper. Once everyone had done so, she told them they had 15 minutes to write down beside each name something they admired about that particular student. After 15 minutes, she collected the papers and dismissed the class. A few months later, the class was again being difficult, and the teacher stopped the class and said to the students, "I have something to pass out to you." The student had cut all of the students' pages into strips, then created a separate page for each student, gluing to that page the comments about that particular student. She gave each student their page of comments. Several years later, one of the teacher's students from that class was killed while serving in the Middle East. The student's mother phoned the teacher, asked if she would attend the funeral. After the service and the committal, the mother walked up to the teacher who was standing by the graveside. Mother said to the teacher, "My son had very few things with him when he died, but they found this in his pocket." And she handed the teacher the piece of paper on which his 31 classmates had written what they admired about him. There was a young woman standing next to a teacher. She said, "I was in that class and I carry mine too. I look at it whenever life gets tough." Another of the mourners who was standing nearby say, "I incorporated my list into my wedding vows." I think that story resonates with us because we all want to have such a list we can turn to. We all want to be assured, reminded, affirmed in who we are, told that there is something beautiful, something noble, something admirable, something good within us. Too often we don't remember the words of affirmation, but we remember the hurtful words, the words that name our deficiencies, our times of failure, places of woundedness. The parable we have in today's reading from Matthew does that. 10 bridesmaids waiting for the bridegroom to arrive. 5 have brought enough oil to keep their lamps burning, 5 have not. And they have forever since been known respectively as the 5 wise maidens and the 5 foolish maidens. And the most chilling moment in the parable, 5 maidens having arrived after the doors are closed, knock and they're told, "I do not know you." It's another time in the gospel, Jesus says, knock, and the door shall be opened. But in this one parable, the one called Lord hears someone knocking and says, "I do not know you." The students in our story kept their pieces of paper because those pages contain messages from others saying, "I do know you. I know you are caring. I know you are brave. I know you're coping with so much and you keep showing up. I know you make me laugh. You have a nice smile. You appreciate the birds resting on a branch." Jesus did that. He says to Zacchaeus, the tax collector who was scorned by the other villagers, "You are a child of Abraham. I'm going to dine at your house today." He says to the thief hanging on the cross beside him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." The Jesus who calls us friends is the Jesus who embodies the God who knows us, who knows each of us as a beloved child, the God who does not divide us into loved and cursed, wise and foolish, worthy and unworthy, the God who does not tell anyone they are no longer welcome. The gospel writer adds a footnote to this parable. It says, "Keep awake." Consider this. What if the parable is not about the way God treats foolish people? It's about what happens in societies when we are no longer awake to God's presence in the world. Then doors are closed. Then we don't recognize others. Then we don't welcome or include others. Then people cease to be seen in all of their humanity. People become just designations, just foolish ones. We need to awaken to the image of God embodied in every person, to the sacred present in all creation, awake to the sufferings of creation, to the sufferings of humanity, whether they be the sufferings of people in care facilities who right now can't be visited by family and friends, or the sufferings of indigenous communities without access to safe drinking water, sufferings of people whose lives are confined by illness, addiction, poverty, violence. Remembrance Day should remind us to be awake. Awake to the suffering in our world, awake to the suffering caused by war, awake to the loss of human beings, all of whom probably once were students whom somebody admired, students from Canada, the United States, Iran, Cambodia, Germany, France, Vietnam, Russia, Israel, Palestine, South Africa, from all over the world. Author Sam Keane says the casualty of war is our awareness of the humanity of others. He writes, war propaganda systematically eliminates the biography and the rich texture of individual human lives and reduces the other to the enemy, a demonic or faceless stereotype that can be eliminated without qualms. Remembrance Day should awaken us to peacemaking, not as a response to war, but as an alternative to unjust systems that contribute to creating the fear and the anger and the poverty and the ambition that can contribute to war. Awaken to seeing and affirming the sacred in everyone. Awaken to redistributing wealth and resources so that creation is respected and everyone has enough without anyone having too much. One day awaken to a post-COVID world in which we can affirm that we are a global community and that we are all brothers and sisters and bearers of God's presence. There's no easy or one-dimensional way to create a world of peace. But we can begin with a vision of doors being opened, of all being welcomed, and of God declaring that when we are awakened to creation's sacredness, we may all discover that we are with Christ in paradise, with Christ in the heart of God. Thanks be to God. Amen.